since then.
And if somebody wants to get good at selling, what, there's go out there and, try to sell 1,000 times is one way to get better. But if you wanted to improve your rate of learning, what books, courses, whatever, what YouTube videos, do you remember that that really clicked for me? And that was kind of a game changing thing for me in getting better at selling.
I have relatively stronger beliefs about the topic. So I think, first off, a lot of people read books before they start selling. And I've thought a lot about it, and I don't think that's the right path because you don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
You only know what the concept of building rapport is until you've not had rapport. And oh, okay, now I understand how this works. But until you confront the reality, you can't bucket the knowledge into something that's actionable.
That's so true.
I'm a proponent of doing first, realizing the deficiencies, and then going to find the information now to match the real life scenarios that you have encountered. The second part of the question is which books or things made things click. So there's one moment that made things click, which was, I said this in the book, Sam, which is make people offer so good they'd feel stupid saying no, which was the secret of selling, right? Is if you just make it so good that they won't say no, then it makes your job 100 times easier. And so I did work really hard on that side to make my job easier.
Yeah, and I agree with that. My problem when I'm a copywriter, former self-taught copywriter, and I know all about that, but I'm if people want to refund this is going to be a pain in the butt. In order to make this, in order to make an offer irresistible, you could go a couple different routes, but one of them is you just do lots of stuff. And when I think about that route, I'm oh my God, that's going to be a lot of work. I don't know if I can actually execute on that.
Alex, what's an example of that? So give an example of where you see people with a kind of substandard offer and how you would switch it to be a more irresistible offer.
I mean, a simple one we did within the agency space in the software company that we started was we helped them transition from a retainer model to a pay performance model. So that was an implied guarantee. And we just said, listen, pay us one time up front, which, by the way, for most of them was what their LTV was because most of them sucked. So it's if you're charging $1,500 a month, which would be probably the standard small business B2B, I would say commoditized price point for generic lead gen, they're charging $1,500 a month. We said, hey, charge your person $5,000 up front day one and say you'll never charge them again unless someone walks in the door. And so they'll cover the ad spend after that, and you don't get any percentage of it unless someone walks in the door. So you generate the leads and work the leads, and when the person shows up, you charge X. And that was based on a pricing survey that we ran internally to our customers, where I said, if we worked your leads for you, what would you be willing to pay as a flat rate? And so there was a big pricing curve, and the concentration of 75% were willing to pay between $300 and $400 a month for that, just as a flat service. And I was okay. Now I asked the exact same scenario, same result, same everything later on in the survey. And I said, if we just said, hey, pay per show, what would you be willing to pay for somebody who walks in the door? For the same exact performance, they're willing to pay 4 times as much. And so I said, well, why don't we price it that way? And so we did it on a pay per show model. And so that's what we transitioned. And it also makes it way easier to sell. We could cash flow the acquisition because we were making the LTV that the agencies could make normally upfront day one in cash. And what's cooler is then the first 30 days, they had people show up. So they get cash up front. And then in the first 30 days, they're still getting cash that they can use to finance the acquisition to the customer, right? And so that's a much more irresistible offer from a chiropractor. It's well, how do I know it's going to work? It's you pay us one time just to get all the shit set up. And then from this point going forward, only when someone shows up, you have to pay.
And so people understand this. You said software company. And so I watched a lot of your videos, so I know this, but you basically had 3 or 4 or 5 businesses. The first one was this main one, which was Gym Launch. And that was doing 30, 40, 50 million.
No.
You can correct me in a second.
That one did 26. So we did 6.8 million year one. That was the hybrid between me doing Gym Rescue and transitioning to the licensing model. So about halfway through year one, I was this model's not working. And so we flipped it. And then that's when we shot out like a gun. The first month we did 120. The next month, I think we did 2 something. Then it was 360, then 480, then 780, then $1 million, then $1.2 million, $1.5 million. That was literally the next 6 months. And so that crossed us into the second year of business. And then that year we did 26 million. So we did 6.8 with 3 million in EBITDA year one. The second year we did 25.9 with 17 million. And then year 3, and this is why I'm a big advocate, and this is maybe just my own deficiency, but We did 37 million top line, 13.4 million in EBITDA. So Alex made a big fuck up and was like, hey, because at this point, even though it might sound like this was a short period of time, I was like, I had heard that I could sell this for like $100 million. So I was like, fuck yeah, let's do that. Lo and behold, a 3-year fucking journey. But anyways, and there was this flu that went around. People lost their minds. It didn't affect the gym space at all. That was good. I'm joking.